fast is going to get you a ship any faster. And while there are things to be said about being able to get things on the books and get things underway, I think what gets lost in that mix is the work necessary to be able to understand what it is that you're building and whether if it's executable within the resources that you have and to meet the requirements that you have, right? And so I think that early design work that we would like to see is key to being able to understand what even the art of the possible is for something like Battleship, for example. So the companies that we go and go out and meet with, commercial shipbuilding companies and other companies, they have a mantra that is a little different of go slow at first to go fast in the end, right? And so that important early design work helps you kind of suss out what it is you can and can't do. So while AI and digital tools, and I talk a lot about them because I see them as vital tools to be able to progress and speed through some iterations of design, they're just a tool, right? They can't help you fix a business case that does not close. And so that work needs to be done up front to be able to understand what it is we're going to do before we start letting contracts for construction and authorizing construction to begin and bending steel. So I think it's really important just to you know, sometimes the things that we say at GAO get taken in a very siloed and narrow manner, and we don't mean to imply that, you know, one tool is the solution to everything. It's just an option to help builders move more quickly once they understand the design and once they move through that process.
I appreciate that. Eric, you commented on it, but I know I'm over my time. We'll submit a question for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. I now recognize Mr. Carbajal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Oakley, strengthening the U.S. shipbuilding industrial base requires sustained demand across both commercial and government sectors, which is why the SHIPS Act is so critical. How would enactment of the SHIPS Act help generate the kind of consistent commercial demand needed to stabilize and grow the industrial base that government shipbuilding relies on?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that having a thriving commercial shipbuilding industry in the United States would be beneficial to our military shipbuilding endeavors, absolutely. I think the thing about it is that we can't kind of ignore is trying to create that from basically nothing at this point, at the same time that we're trying to revitalize our military shipbuilding industrial base, is not an easy feat. It's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to require sustained commitment. And so you might imagine that anything that happens that you all are able to pass and move through needs to be committed to for the long term because it's a long-term problem to be solved.
In that regard, how do you see the SHIPS Act complementing the administration's Maritime Action Plan in achieving a more sustainable whole-of-industry approach to rebuilding U.S. shipbuilding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously they're very complementary. We haven't done a complete analysis, but they complement each other significantly. And I will also mention that they do align in a number of ways with recommendations that my team has made on military shipbuilding, but also our colleagues that cover commercial shipbuilding have made similar recommendations related to cargo preference and mariner training and facilities in that regard. And so there's a number of things that we've pointed out as well that are very important. I think the thing that I mentioned in my opening statement about having like a coordinated strategic approach is super important in this regard because we don't want to get in the business of robbing Peter to pay Paul in any way, shape, or form. And right now we have the Navy making the bulk of the investments into the industrial base at this point for its purposes, obviously. But we don't want that to disadvantage the other shipbuilding industrial base, including the Coast Guard and the commercial shipbuilding industrial base that we're trying to build up. That's why it's so important for those efforts to be highly coordinated across those entities.
Thank you. Dr. Labs, you discuss in your testimony the potential effects that the administration's Golden Fleet project for the Navy could have on the industry. In some, it would ease the burden in some sectors, but increase it in others. Even though the Navy's project significantly outpaced the Coast Guard's by sheer number of vessels, can the Coast Guard shipbuilding projects have a net positive impact on the industry And if so, what is the path for the service to make that a reality?
I would say yes, the Coast Guard's project can have a positive effect on the industry because a lot of the Coast Guard vessels, when they have purchased them, would tend to go to yards that do not build Navy ships. That isn't 100% true, but that has been largely true, over the past, 20 to 30 years or so. The extent that the Coast Guard can sort of have a positive effect on industry, they should continue to do things like what they have been doing most recently, which is sort of, they have outsourced some of their work to the Finns in terms of the Arctic Security Cutter, but also then distributing their work amongst shipyards that are currently not doing a lot of Navy work, but also following the practices and recommendations that the GAO has identified by also making sure their designs are set, that they are engaging in sort of the best practices for the commercial shipbuilding industry, engaging in as much of the new technology and modernization for the shipyards that they place their business with as much as possible.
Thank you. Dr. Labs, you noted in your testimony the long-term contracts can help provide stability in the work to bolster shipyards. In general, is either block buy authority or multi-year procurement authority better?
I would say that either have positive benefits in the sense that they provide the long-term stability that shipbuilders are looking for. One of the things when I go out to visit shipyards is that they stress over and over again that what they want is a consistent, steady demand signal, which allows them to sort of plan, to then tool up, size their workforce correctly, and really sort of get things humming, get those learning curves down, and getting ships out faster than they do when they first start out. Block buy has the advantages of being something that can be done relatively easily compared to multi-year procurement, but multi-year procurement has more legislative authorities into it that allows that has more, if you will, sort of more rigor behind it. It's a stronger enforcement mechanism on discipline upon the part of the services and the government to provide that steady demand signal. But both do that job.
Thank you. I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I have one more question. I'll just submit it for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Carbajal. I now recognize Ms. Elfreth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the new kid here, so I'll be brief, I promise. Ms. Oakley, my fiance is a GAO alum, and so I'm particularly partial to your incredible work, and I too am so grateful for your objective feedback here, especially as we move into markup. I want to follow up on the question I had asked the previous panel around, trying our best to get to 95% of predictability for spare parts, but I'm going to quote Mark Twain here and say there's lies, damn lies in statistics, because if the 5% we get wrong happen to be that one part that takes 6 to 18 months to produce, even if we still